Take a moment and silence your cell phones if you can, if you know how. And if you don't, you ask the youngest person in the room. I'm trying to see. A pretty old crowd. It's God. Nice people at home, if you can hear me, would you give me a thumbs up? No, Roz, the thumb, not that finger. Roz. All right, nice people. There's never a right time. Certainly at a young age, it's not the right time. Certainly someone full of life and vigor and exercise and health and nutrition and exercise and more exercise. And did I mention exercise? I love the line, pickleball wasn't enough, he had to go back to regular tennis. What do we say on this day? We look to God, and there's no answer. So we have to look at memories and rejoice at all the happy times that you shared. We have to look with gratuity, with gratefulness to God, and say, thank you, God, for a wonderful man, for his life and his love, for a son and a daughter-in-law that was like a daughter, for a bride whom he very much loved 50 years later as he did the day they were married, as a dear brother, uncle, cousin, and friend, as a neighbor. On this day, we look heavenward and we thank God for his life. If you know the words of the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, it might be printed in your little pamphlets. Is it there? God bless. If you can read the small little print in your pamphlet, the 23rd Psalm, say the words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in his paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. God is with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. My friends, the third line from the bottom, my cup runneth over. What does it mean? It's a reference to the fact that somebody had a good life. There's a legend that the day each of us is born, every single person, there's a wine goblet that's created for us. And every time something good happens in life, we get a drop of wine. The day George was born, his cup was fashioned. The first day he was brought home from the hospital as a newborn to Jim and Ann's home, he had a drop of wine. No, he didn't. His cup had a drop of wine. The first time he slept through the night, drop of wine. The first time his parents slept through the night, drop of wine. First Thanksgiving, first birthday, first holiday, drop of wine, drop of wine, drop of wine. But Scott, there's one occasion when a father gets 2 drops of wine, just once. And that's if they're blessed with a daughter. When we're blessed with daughters, it's a double blessing. But what about sons? 0. I have 5 sons. They are useless. They will find me on the kitchen floor months later, and they'll never even know. Who keeps our family together? It's the women of our family that keep our families cohesive. Not the sons. They're too busy. I gotta go to work. I got this, I got that. The women of the family, and very much in this case, it was a daughter-in-law who very much became a daughter, who was a double blessing in George's life. And we'll give Scott a drop and a half. On this day, we say thank you for the life of a wonderful man and his legacy. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. God gave his life. God took his life. Blessed is the name of the Lord. Most of you are too young. You're not so young. Mostly everybody else is too young to remember a folk singer by the name of Pete Seeger. He played the guitar. It was 1959 when Pete Seeger opened the Bible. And he found a beautiful piece in the book of Ecclesiastes. If you were alive in 1963, you might remember the Byrds, a musical group that sang this piece. To everything there is a season, a time, a purpose under heaven. There's a time to be born, and then a time to die. There's a time to plant roots up north in New York, and then a time to pack up and leave and move to this beautiful paradise or close enough to Georgia. There's a time when we tear a ribbon. You'll notice the family is wearing a black mourner's ribbon, but it has a tear in it, specifically a jagged tear. It's not even a straight tear. It's to show that a loved one was torn from their lives, abruptly torn. There's a time when we throw stones as children at the beach. And there's a time at a grave when we gather stones. At the end of the service, when we go out to the mausoleum here on the grounds, once we enter into the mausoleum, look on the ground and see piles of stones. It means loved ones have visited. We're going to leave stones today. A time to be silent, and then a time to speak. A bride of 50 years, Susan. A son, Scott, and his bride, Heather. Brothers, Paul and Billy. Can I call you Billy? Bill, all right, because I've been your rabbi for so many years, I thought I could get away with calling you Billy. But we'll go with Bill. Thank you. Brothers, Paul and Bill. Today, nieces and nephews, Dawn, Kaylee, Nick, Today, you all try to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. There are no answers, there's no comfort, there's no solace. We look heavenward and God is silent. We beseech the angels and they're silent. But the ancient sages gave us the answer. They said, we're supposed to use today as a day to give thanks for a wonderful life, for a wonderful marriage, for a beautiful family. Today we give thanks, and that's a hard thing to do. I learned the story of George's life, born to Jim and Ann. George and his brothers Paul and Bill were raised in the greatest city in the world, Queens. You got to say Queens because if you just say New York, somebody might think it's Brooklyn.
Excuse me.
God forbid. He was educated there, went to the famed Richmond Hill High School, and then off to Queens College, graduating finally from Oglethorpe in Brookhaven. But it happened one day in Manhattan that George took a lunch break. He was sitting at the majestic fountain across from the Equitable building. He, working in the MetLife building, would often pause at that fountain during lunchtime to enjoy the scenery. It happened that the scenery that day was a beautiful young woman named Susan. He was tall, dark, and no, he wasn't. How tall was he? Okay, we're giving him tall. He was tall, dark, and handsome. But this Susan, She was a beauty queen. She could have been a rocket. And they started a conversation at the fountain. The conversation would last for 50 years. They came together as one heart and one soul. In the single light of their life, an adored son, Scott, was born. But wait, it gets better. Because Scott became a fine young man, proud adult, and he gave his parents endless pride. But thank God for Heather. I mean, we love Scott, but we adore Heather. Heather, as Susan described, is a daughter, not a daughter-in-law. And in the early 1990s, Georgia became home and life was dear and grand. Relatives and friends enriched George and Susan's life. Wonderful people, Jim and Elfrida, along with their sons Brad and Cliff, became like one extended family. Other dear friends going way back, Penny, Sherry and John, Urit and Stu, Myrna and Richard, you are all friends who became family. George loved his Manhattan years, but creating a new life in Georgia was bliss. George continued to be a competitive athlete. You name the sport, he was good at it. Golf, tennis, softball, baseball, pickleball, walking, working out, and of course his hidden talent, magic. He could have taught Harry Houdini magic tricks, he was that good. From a wheelchair, he was making things disappear. Let us remember the man whom everyone loved. He was a magnet, and people saw his genuine kindness, good nature, and sincerity. He impacted so many lives over the years, and his early death is hard to make sense of. People at home, can you still hear me? Thumbs up? Perfect. Because if not, I was going to start all over at the very beginning. On this day of memory, call to mind the family that loved to travel. Actually, it was half a family, George and Heather. They would plan the trips, while Susan and Scott just went along for the ride. This ride encompassed all 50 states, but not just crossing the border into the state. They actually had to do something physical, active in the state. It also was in some amazing car trips to Africa and Iceland. I don't know how you pulled that one off. And beautiful, majestic beauty. George and Susan, Scott and Heather created a lifetime of memories, which hopefully those memories will envelop you today. There are no words. There's nothing we can say. The words, I'm sorry for your loss, it doesn't work for Susan, Scott, or Heather, for Billy or Paul. But there are beautiful memories, memories that will never fade. It's said that people die twice. First time they die is when their body expires. The second time they die is when their memory is forgotten. That will never happen here, because you have such a treasure trove of beautiful memories. This family will always be grateful to Divine, who poured 1,000% caregiver of her heart and her soul, her professionalism, her care and her love. Divine, you went above and beyond the words that could never explain your tireless care and your love. You were indeed a blessing to this family. George, you are with God. The angels surround you. 4 of them are here: Michael, Gavriel, Uriel, and Raphael, 4 angels. And in perfect harmony, they elevate your soul into the peace of life eternal. Susan, don't think of him as being here. He's not here. He's in your heart. That's where he'll always live. Let us say thank you, God, for life. We're going to have an opportunity to share some happy memories. The family is going to go first, and then if others would like to take a minute or two and also share a memory, you can do that as well. I'm giving you a little heads up. Let's start with the family, Susan and Scott. Heather, do you want to come forward, share a few words? We need to lower the camera.
I see. I'm a little numb right now, just to let you know. And most of what I'm going to say, you all know already from just life and what the rabbi said. But I have a need, a feel, I have to say it. So please bear with me. George and I were married for 50 years. As most of you know, I was so worried he wouldn't last to our anniversary. I asked him, please hang on, so I could say I was married 50 years, and he did. That was the kind of husband he was. He never said no to me and gave me so much of himself, making sure we had a good life together. He treated me like a queen on a pedestal. He was a wonderful husband that loved me so much, and I loved him so much. He was my best friend, my life partner, my everything. We traveled the world together, just the two of us most of the time, but we also loved our big and small trips with Heather and Scott. Like the rabbi said, George and Heather would do the planning, and Scott and I would just tag along. And they were great trips. Africa, Iceland, and so many others. George and I also, we visited all 50 states, and George did all the driving himself. Our last 8 states was a 4,600-mile trip one way. I may not remember all the details of every trip or which state or country we were talking about, but I always have the memories of a great time with him. And he almost always remembered every detail, even towards the end. From the day I met him, I knew he was into sports. He golfed, he played baseball, he played football with friends when we met. Over the years, he also got into tennis, pickleball, softball, working out, and brisk long walks. It was on one of those walks in 2024 that he noticed a problem with his left leg. For 1 year, he was misdiagnosed until finally in March of 2025, when he was diagnosed with ALS. That was the beginning of the end. All I can say about ALS journey is how proud I am of him, how he handled it. It is a horrible disease, and you have to lose all pride and dignity and have so much courage to deal with it. He hung on and told me every day how much he loved me. Watching Scott and Heather with him was wonderful. They came every week for a night or two, and sometimes twice a week. Scott had so much love for him, doing things no son should have to do for his father. And Heather had so much love for him. When she was there, she would insist on feeding him his meals, even though I was there and the caregiver were there. And there's no way to explain how they made sure to take care of me. Heather wouldn't let me lift a finger, and Scott was always by my side doing whatever was needed to be done. I don't know what I would have done without them. And they were my sounding board when I got upset, and I hated putting that on them, but I did. I love you both so much, and there aren't words to thank you properly. All the family and friends that traveled to see him, and John and Sherry to come and take care of us when I broke my leg. John helping George, Sherry helping me, plus doing some of George's morning routine that I couldn't do. I love you all so much. Besides being a wonderful husband, he was a great father, a great father-in-law, and a great grandfather to Vino and Cabby, our grandpuppies. They loved him so much. At the end, every night they would jump into bed with him and give him a kiss goodnight. He definitely put family first, as shown by me being a stay-at-home mom when Scott was born. He definitely put me first before himself. He was one of the most loved, stand-up guys there are. I will miss him so much, and will always love him so much, and think of him and our memories together forever. Thank you, George, for these 50 years of fantastic memories and love. You will be in my heart forever. I just want you to know now that you are at peace, so I'm at peace. I know you'll watch over me and always be by my side. I love you.
You made it through. I don't know how. Well, everyone, thank you for being here to honor my dad. I think we were envisioning about 10 people here, sitting in a hallway. So it is very special and heartwarming to see all of you that made the trip here. And before I start talking about my dad, I'd like to say something about my mom. Like Mom said, they were together for 51 years, and what she did for my dad, especially over the last year during his battle with ALS, was nothing short of extraordinary. She never left his side. It's hard to truly understand what she did unless you were in it every day. Heather and I certainly understand that, and I think John and Sherry understand it too. And John and Sherry, I know my mom already thanked you, but I'd like to extend our appreciation for being there when my parents needed you most. That meant so much to our family, and we love you for it. Mom, what you gave to Dad was an incredible act of love and dedication, and it deserves to be recognized. I love you so much. George Stephen Klisures was a great man. There's really no other way to start. A wonderful husband, a great friend, a trusted colleague, a supportive coach and teammate, and to me, an amazing father. One thing I didn't fully appreciate until I got older was just how hard he worked for our family. For a number of years, he worked 2 jobs to make sure that my mom and I had everything we needed, and honestly, a lot of what we wanted as well. For any fans of the TV show The White Lotus, I'll borrow a quote. My mother was not meant to live an uncomfortable life. And that was basically my dad's mission statement. Even after he settled into just one job at MetLife, he didn't exactly slow down. He worked late nights and weekends, and later in his career, he traveled a ton. And he had a lot of stress. And yet somehow, he always made time for me. He was there for my games, baseball, basketball, soccer, even the ones, if I'm honest, were not exactly must-see events. I'll admit, I was pretty good at baseball, but basketball and soccer, not so much. Some of those games must have been a rough watch, but he showed up anyway. And not just physically, he was engaged. We'd always talk about the games afterwards, break things down, figure out what I did well and what I could have done better. And now that I'm older and working in a similar field, I honestly don't know how he had the energy to do all of that for me, but he did, and that meant so much. As I've gotten older, my mom and Heather frequently point out how similar I am to my dad, which is interesting because I spent much more day-to-day time with my mom growing up. But whenever we're together, you'd likely hear, like father, like son. And even though it was usually said to poke fun at us, I'll take that as a huge compliment every time. There are a few traits I know I got from my dad, whether by inheriting them or just by watching him live his life. The first is empathy. My dad always tried to see things from other people's perspectives, and he cared about how his words and actions affected others. Second was his sense of ethics. He had a really strong moral compass. Sometimes, if I'm being honest, it could be a little frustrating. But he wasn't just a rule follower for the sake of being compliant. He genuinely wanted to do right by people. That mattered to him. The third trait was curiosity. He loved to learn, and he was a critical thinker. You couldn't just tell him something and expect him to accept it. He wanted facts, evidence, and reasoning. That's something I'm really grateful to have inherited, and it's made me good at my job. And finally, his sense of humor, especially his ability to laugh at himself while still having pride. That balance is pretty rare. It's something I value a lot, and I know it shaped who I am and the kinds of people that I like to surround myself with. In the past few days since his passing, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I'm so relieved that his suffering from ALS is over, but I'm also deeply sad and feel a huge void in my life. And sometimes it's really the little things. A couple of days ago, Heather came out with me and I played a great round of golf. My first instinct was to tell Dad about it. And then I realized I couldn't. And that hit me pretty hard. Because even when the ALS took away his ability to play the game that he loved and hated, but mostly loved, I know how frustrating and depressing that was for him. But he still loved hearing about my good rounds of golf. He was excited for me, and he was proud of me. I think that says everything about the kind of person and the kind of father he was. So, Dad, thank you for everything, for the work, the sacrifices, the lessons, the laughs, and for showing up over and over again. I appreciate you. I love you, and I'm going to miss you so much.
I truly don't have it in me to say anything. I think y'all have noticed I can't speak, but I loved George very much. So I guess we'll open the floor for anyone else who wants to say something.
John, let's see who else. We have a few people on our short list that might want to say a few words at this time. Penny, do you want to come forward? Or Sherry and John, who wants to speak? Jim? Okay, we got someone coming. You're going to have to beat them out. Whoever gets there first.
Both Sherry and I have known Susan and George for over 40 years. Okay, can everybody hear me? They've been good friends to Sherry and I, but the one thing that stands out to me, when you see George, he has a wonderful grin, turns into a big smile. When I look at that picture, that's George. That's what I remember. He always seemed happy and calm about life, except maybe when he was on the golf course. George was so proud of you, Scott, and you, Heather. And you were like a daughter to both of them. Susan, you know he adored you. No one, though, should ever have to go through the disease ALS. It just is unbelievable. But I never really knew anybody close besides George that had this disease. And to see the family support that you gave him to make his life more comfortable, as comfortable as possible. You've already heard how George was such an athlete, playing golf regularly, playing and coaching softball, and occasionally playing pickleball. He wasn't real a fan of pickleball, though. Tennis was his true love. But he loved to watch you play, Scott. And I remember my son was a year younger than you, but they were in the same baseball league. And Scott's team got to go to the World Series, the Little League World Series. Unfortunately, there was a boy with his last name was Burris, and he hit a home run and they lost 1-0 in the finals. Burris played in the major leagues for years. When Scott went to college at Georgia University, George now became a great fan of Georgia. And I remember him saying to me when we were up at your house, there were a couple things he wanted to have happen. And one of them was Georgia to win the college, what do they call it? College championship. And I became a Georgia fan too. Never really watched them, but I was rooting. George was a devoted husband who adored his wife. Susan, it took me a long time to say that. Susan, how many times did I say Sue? And she would get pissed. Call me Susan. They liked to travel. They traveled the world, and Scott and Heather, they went on many occasions. But my best memories were of George when we went to the Adams Cup. Everybody loved George. He was just a great athlete. But all of us were disappointed because last year we had our 25th anniversary. He couldn't make it. And he had never won the trophy, but every year we'd all say, boy, it'd be nice if George got it. And he tried, believe me, he tried very hard. And I'm sure many years he was very disappointed on his ride home from wherever we played. He was one of our top 3 golfers out of 24. And even before he became ill, so many of us were rooting for him to win. But George won in life. And so did I. Because I had a friend. George will be missed by all of us.
I think I can do this. I'm speaking on behalf of the Jersey girls. Penny, Garrett, Myrna, myself, and Susan, you'll always be a part of us. There's not a lot that I can say about George that hasn't already been said. He was kind, easygoing, except as everybody knows on the golf course. He loved all sports, magic, and he had a great sense of humor, in spite of everything that he went through the past 2 years. But more importantly, he loved his family and his friends fiercely. But I want to share with you some things about Susan that you may not know. I always knew that she was organized to a fault and that she was one of the strongest women I've ever met. But she's also compassionate, selfless, and she has unlimited patience. As a caregiver for George, she set the bar high for anyone in their role. John and I spent a week with Susan and George to help them when Susan broke her femur. She could no longer do the daily tasks for George that she always did. John helped Davine, mostly with lifting, but whatever George needed that we couldn't do, and he spent hours and hours watching sports with George. I tried to help in any way I could with Susan and with George, I found early on that I couldn't hold a candle to Susan. From morning to night, day after day, she was there for him. Whether it was making him more comfortable, helping with grooming, getting his medications in order, or just holding his hand, Susan was his rock. She didn't complain. She had so much patience. Susan, I'm so proud of the way that you have handled all of this the past 2 years, and I'm in awe of you. Scott and Heather, the love and support that you gave was such a comfort to your parents. You traveled to Mayo Clinic with them. You went to doctor's appointments with them. You were on every Zoom call, and from what I understand, that is very unusual, that most of the time they've never had family members be on Zoom calls besides a spouse. Scott, you really stepped up, and I know that your father was so proud of you, how involved you were with his care, and how you were always there for your mother. Heather, if something was needed, you had it taken care of even before Susan, which was not an easy feat. As everyone has said here today, you are more than a daughter-in-law, you are a daughter. George set goals and milestones, so he had something to look forward to. Unfortunately, his goals for the Mets and the Jets didn't pan out, but he did reach his 50th anniversary milestone, and he got to spend it with the love of his life last November. I had a memory yesterday of George and Susan visiting us at our shore house in New Jersey almost 2 years ago. George had his first symptoms then, and he was having a hard time walking, especially getting up and down the many stairs that we had in our house. But he never complained. We had a wonderful few days with them, and about a week later, John received a text from George thanking us for being such wonderful hosts and appreciating the time that we spent together. What man do you know that does that would take the time to do that? Only George.
We have a minute or two left. Does anyone else want to add an anecdote or a story or a happy memory? You're up. Come on, my friend. No rush. You've got 30 seconds. Take all your time. Okay.
These are going to be tough acts to follow, especially with the rabbi. I have to say that I'm probably one of the luckiest guys here. I met George when I was a sophomore in high school, 1964. We've been friends for 62 years. We shared everything together. Susan will tell you, although we live many miles apart, when we spoke on the phone, we'd have marathon phone conversations. It would last 3 or 4 hours. She used to say, how late did you girls talk tonight? Yeah. He was a friend, not only a best friend, but he had a tremendous sense of humor. He was the kind of person that would laugh, enjoy life. I remember one particular time, we were 5 guys in a rowboat. And one of the guys in the back had a little 7-horsepower motor. And he went to grab the motor, and the handle came out. And the motor just flipped to the side, and the boat's going around in a circle. Meanwhile, we had quite a few beers in us. We were all toasted on the boat. I remember saying to George, if the girls are here, they'd be nothing but trouble, right? And he almost fell out of the boat in laughter. And that's how I want to remember George. All the good times. He had a loving wife, a loving son, a loving daughter. You're not a daughter-in-law, you're a daughter. He loved to everybody. And I'd like to say that, George, thank you for being my best friend in life. I love you, and may you rest in peace.
Is there anyone else? The last time I heard the 5 guys in a rowboat story, it had a little different ending. It was a priest, a minister, and a rabbi also in the same rowboat. My friends, a few announcements. At the conclusion of this chapel service, our funeral director will give us instructions as how to proceed. Because the entombment in the mausoleum, the family mausoleum, will take place right here on the grounds at Star of David. But we'll have to return to our cars and drive to the mausoleum. It's a little too far to walk, even though it's here on the property. After the mausoleum service is over, everyone is warmly invited. Penny, are we coming to your house? Yes, you're warmly invited to Penny. Where's Penny? Penny Matthews' beautiful home in Delray Beach. It's on Cataluna Circle. Is it printed in your little brochures? 7108 Cataluna Circle. It's in the Vizcaya community, and if you use the GPS, you won't get there because you have to use the entrance that's on Atlantic Avenue, even though GPS will take you to another entrance. Look for the Vizcaya community on Atlantic Avenue, 7108 Cataluna. I'd like to invite you, the family, to come stand with him for a closing prayer. All family come forward. Place a hand on the casket, if you can. Those of you who are able, please rise. El Malay Rachamim Shochen Bamaromim. Amatzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina. Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohad Harakia Mazirim. Et Nishmat George Sel Halach Leolamo. Bagan Eden Tehia Menucha Tolachein. Baal Harachamim. Yastirehu Beseter Kanaf Leolamim. Yitzror HaChaim et Nishmato. Adonai Hunach Halato. V'tanuach v'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest and the sheltering presence to our beloved George, who is surrounded by those he loved most in life. God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound in the bonds of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Nice family, if you would return to your seats, but everyone remains standing. Our funeral director, Matthew, will give us instructions as how to proceed to the mausoleum.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the chapel portion of our service. The entombment will take place here on the grounds of Star of David. I ask everybody to please remain standing by your seats as the casket and family passes by, and then please follow us along. Please allow the hearse, the rabbi, and the family's cars to proceed first, and you may follow behind us in procession today. Thank you.
Family, you're going to walk right behind the casket. All right, Paul and Bill right afterwards. Oh, go ahead, look, honey. Go ahead, sure. All right, nice people. Were you able to hear everything okay? Sound was good? Perfect. All right, the service was recorded. So if somebody you know was not here and they wanted to watch the playback or watch the video of the service, just reach out to Scott. He has a link that he can provide you. It's a different link than the one you used today. The one you used to get here will expire, but a new playback link will be created. And just reach out, Scott will get it to you. The family has asked me to thank you for being with them. This is going to end our Zoom. We can't take you with us out to the garden. We don't get reception. but the family wanted us to tell me that they are grateful to you for being with them today. Shalom. Bye-bye.